Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Bob Duff, State Senator, representing Norwalk and Darien. Glad to have you all here tonight. And so we're just going to do a few opening comments, then we'll go right into questioning. We have till 8 o'clock. We'll do a hard stop at 8 o'clock, so everybody can get back on with their evenings. So I just want to, again, just welcome you all here. Thank you for coming. Our legislative session starts a week from Tuesday. Prior to that, we may actually have a special session on transportation. We'll see how if that materializes, but I feel confident that it will. Our legislative session ended last year in June, and I think we passed a number of important bills that are important to the residents of the district and also to the residents of Connecticut, such as increasing the minimum wage over 5 years to $15 an hour, passing a paid family medical leave in the state of Connecticut, cutting taxes for senior citizens and those who are retired. We worked on a number of other issues of health care and many other types of things that came out of various committees in the legislature. So we had a budget that came out on time, that's balanced, and I think helps, again, our residents here in the district and in the state of Connecticut. We have a number of issues that are coming up this session. We only have a 13-week session coming up. We had, as Senate Democrats, we had press conferences last week to talk about many of the things that are important to our caucus, such as continuing to work on health care and prescription drugs, which I'm sure is shared by my colleagues here. We continue to work on things like net neutrality and data privacy. Continue to work on issues that really impact people in their day-to-day lives. So whether it's big or small or somewhere in between, we want to continue to make sure we're not only here in the district representing you, but working up in Hartford doing the same thing too. So these kind of forums are important for us. We did one here pretty much this time last year. I have another one on Friday in Darien, and just want to hear from you all. So see what's going on. Chris?
So that's a wrap, everybody. We cover everything. Chris Perone, I represent the 137th district. Senator Duff is absolutely right. We have a lot of things that are trying to take on in a short session, and transportation is obviously one of them. And just creating a funding structure, mechanism, and oversight mechanism for prioritizing transportation projects going forward, making sure transportation projects are not only adequately funded, but funded in a way that's sustainable long-term. It doesn't balloon our debt service, doesn't balloon our overall debt. And I think these are things that you feed into other areas in state government. I think there's also a lot of focus going to happen on manufacturing. I think we have, the goal is still 30,000? Yeah. Really, the goal is really to get people working in the state of Connecticut. We need, one of the areas we need to improve, I believe, is manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. We have to get people working. We have to make stuff again, as they say. And I think that there are opportunities there that have to be addressed. So I'm not going to just talk and take these guys' time. So I'm going to back off, let these guys go, and then we're going to open up the Q&A.
Just so you know, these microphones are for Mr. Coben back there. Microphones aren't on for some reason, so if you can't hear, come on down. Come a little closer.
Or we'll come to you.
You should come closer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Representative Travis Sims. I represent the 140th District in Norwalk. And as my colleague says, yes, we have a lot of great bills and initiatives that we've been working on over the last year or so. And one of the bills that I'm extremely proud of is the plastic bag ban that many of you in here today came and supported. And as we go forward in this legislation, we're looking forward to making sure that we continue to stay focused on our environment issues, our transportation issues, and also I think Senator Duff, he hit on a good point about the state's budget. Last session, we actually had an agreement with, for the fiscal year 2021, where we actually cut the state budget by $3.7 billion. So that's going to really help the taxpayers around this state in a tremendous way, and we look forward to doing more of the same going forward. So again, thank you all for coming out this evening, and we thank you for allowing us to serve.
Hi, I'm Lucy Dathan. I've met a lot of people in this room, and it's so great that you're out here on a not so chilly evening here in January. We start session next week, which I'm really excited about. If you don't know me, I am a vice chair of the Insurance and Real Estate Committee. I sit in Human Services, and my probably biggest time commitment committee is Appropriations. With my, I'm a CPA by my background. I've had 25 years of finance experience, so I love appropriations, and I'm doing my best to know the budget line by line. So I am very keen on delving into that this year. We will be getting a new governor's budget coming up in the coming weeks. So I'm looking forward to really getting into that again. But one of my passions really is surrounding healthcare and sitting on insurance and real estate. My key focus is really on trying to make insurance and healthcare more affordable for everyone in the state. And so one of the key things that I'm looking at is including a statewide reinsurance plan, but also really looking at how we can make our prescription drugs cheaper. And we're looking at drug importation. Another passion of mine is the environment, and there's a whole lot of things. If you follow me on Facebook, I'm doing kind of daily updates on sort of my key priorities for the session. If we don't get to them tonight, please reach out to me on Facebook or always email me. Thanks. So who wants to start with questions?
Let me just
Go to the, right to
real
the
quick,
lightning round.
just acknowledge Diana Carpio, who's a member of our Norwalk Board of Education, and also Elsa Obachowski, who's on our First District Taxing Commission as well. So 2 other elected officials here tonight. Do you guys want to just talk about real quick your committees before we get into questions? Just switch committees.
All 8 of them. I sit on transportation as well as energy, and I think that 2 years ago they created a position for me where I'm essentially overseeing transportation spending in the General Assembly. So I sit on both finance and appropriations, so I don't sleep. And that's been, we can get into that deeper, but that's the bulk of my time has been focused on transportation funding and finance and vaping, if you believe the Middletown press. So.
And I'm the vice chair of transportation. And as you know, a lot of my time has been dealing with the budget issue, with tolls and things of that nature. And as you may know, I've been opposing tolls. Even as the vice chair, I've been opposing tolls from its inception, because I think that would do a disservice to the residents that I serve. And I think that putting more tolls here in the state, it will further put a further barrier on Connecticut taxpayers. And I know my colleagues, we have a difference of opinions about the toll bill, but we want to make sure that we do it right if we do it. But I want to make sure that Connecticut residents are the ones that's going to be protected the most. And having said that, I'm also, I sit on the Environment Committee, and I also sit on Appropriations. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Okay, Elsa?
Okay, just 2 things. One, I hope you will say something about the 2020 census. And secondly, which ones of you are sure or aren't yet sure whether you're running for re-election?
So yeah, all right, so 2020, the 2020 census is coming up this year, and there's actually been a big push this year in the state of Connecticut to make sure everybody's counted. We just had a press conference with the Lieutenant Governor and the Mayor regarding the census. It's really, really important that everybody is counted. I forget the actual term. What's the term that was used?
Big count?
No, hard to count areas or something like that?
Hard to, yeah.
What's the term? Hard to reach?
Hard to count.
Hard to count, yeah. It's hard to count areas in Norwalk and in various places around the state. So it's really important because what we learned is that for every person who's not counted, there's about I think it's a $2,600, $2,900 that we lose in the state per year per person from the federal government. So it's really important that everybody is done. And this year is the first year they're doing it online to start off with. And then I believe you get something mailed. And then after that, you get a knock on the door, right?
Yeah.
So it gets more expensive as we go along, as it was explained to us. Yes, I have opened up my campaign committee. So.
I've opened up mine as well, and everything you said about the census, I agree.
And I also opened up my campaign as well. As you all know, Lucy, she actually already been started her campaign. So we just ask that, you know, as representatives, that we all come out and support myself and my colleagues as we look forward to continue to work in the best interest of the state of Connecticut and the great city of Norwalk.
So the great thing about, a lot of times people start off early on the fundraising aspect is because we have public financing. Hopefully most of you know that by now because it's been going on for a long time. So we can accept anywhere between $0 and $250 per person. And you all have to get how many?
150.
And $5,000 I have to get $300 and $15,000. So the idea was to take special interest money, special interest out of our financing, and even out the process so that there's no incumbent advantage on fundraising. And so that's actually been, I think, been a good thing for the state, except for Citizens United, which has had a tendency over the last many cycles to put in money at the last minute against, especially against Democrats, House Democrats or Senate Democrats. So people put in millions of dollars at the election cycle right before the elections. And that has been obviously it's kind of destroyed some of the intent of the law that we've had, but nonetheless, I think it's still a good system. Yes?
So I had a question. Thank you for distributing this. This is really helpful. I don't see climate change on here, though, other than the solid waste management. What discussions are being held right now in terms of combating climate change?
That's a great question. I mean, I know Connecticut has an overarching plan to get to carbon neutral by 2040, I think it is.
Yes.
And so that's super important. And my view is we need to ensure that we incentivize companies to try to get there beforehand, whether it is, you know, by giving, you know, looking at different initiatives that we can incentivize companies to do that. I know that's something, I know within the environment sort of arena this year, I'm focusing my efforts on the bottle bill. I would really like to see that one passed. Likewise, I'd like to eliminate the PFAS in the water. That's really is something that's a big issue. And then also some of the common sort of toxins that you see by pesticide applications. Those are the sort of three that I'm kind of looking at this year. I've been working with the environment chairs and just saying these are, you know, some key priorities that I'm hearing from my constituents on a daily basis. And I'm working with Roma over here and looking at what we can do for making solar a big initiative in our state. So I think it's a big thing, and I'd love everybody else, especially Travis, to talk about this who's in my environment.
Yeah, so as Lucy stated, you know, we have a ton of different initiatives that we're working on in the Environment Committee. And as she stated, the bottle bill is one of the big bills that we have full support of. And we want to make sure that that actually something that comes to the forefront for the new session that's coming in the next week or so.
What would that do? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
What would the bottle bill do?
The bottle bill is essentially, well, there's two components to that, right? So the bottle bill is one we're talking about maybe.
It's basically modernizing.
We're talking about maybe modernizing the bottle bill where we can take it from 10 cent, 5 cent to 25 cent or something of that nature. I think that would be something that would allow us to or folks to really clean up the areas and clean up the towns and cities and highways, making sure that if you got 25 cents, you got 4 bottles, you're going to take, that's $1. So I think if you put those kind of incentives in place, folks will be more inclined not to throw them out on the ground, and they'll pick them up and recycle those bottles. So we're looking at that initiative. And I believe we're also talking about getting rid of the plastic bottles as well. We had some discussion regarding that. That also help clean up the environment. So I'll let Lucy talk a little further on that point.
I can, let me just share a little bit on the energy side, because I used to chair the energy committee. Our biggest issue from a standpoint of climate change is the energy we use not only for heating our homes and keeping the lights on, but also our transportation is basically was causing the most climate change for us here, but also nationally and internationally as well. So obviously climate change is a big issue. When I was chair of energy, and it subsequently still happened, but we have worked really hard to replace a lot of the energy that we have to clean energy and to conservation as well. And we're actually one of the top states in the nation for conservation, and we're doing very, very well on the clean energy front as well. We all pay a little bit on our electric bills to provide funds to do more conservation and clean energy, that kind of stuff. What we've done this year is we did the largest procurement of wind energy ever. We've just got to build it right now, and then once it's built, it goes on the grid. We also, one of the things we don't have in the state, which is good, is we don't have any more coal plants, and that's a huge issue for climate change. We do have natural gas, obviously, and oil, but we want to get more and more away from that. We did procure years ago energy from Quebec, from Hydro-Quebec, but we can't get the lines connected from there to here because of an issue in New Hampshire. But that is 100% clean and renewable energy right there. So we have to continue to look for other ways. We're still investing a lot in solar. Our green bank in Connecticut was the very first one in the entire country. So there's a number of different things that we've done on climate change. And for automobiles, the best thing we can do on climate change for our transportation is to pass a transportation bill that actually moves cars and gets people on mass transit. So that's really going to be very, very important for us. The second thing is that is to, again, incent the better cars that are more fuel efficient and better. Now, it's hard for us in the state of Connecticut to do that, but we do follow California's standards as best we can and the federal standards that are out there. One of the things about Connecticut that is good is that we have been working very, very hard over a number of years now, probably about 7 or 8 years, to become range confident for electric vehicles, so that if anybody does have an electric vehicle, they feel confident they can get from point A to point B and back again and not run out of energy for their car. And we also have the VW settlement, so we're doing a number of different procurements on that on clean energy. So there's not an answer on what we do. Also, we've also been working on resiliency on our coastline. I just went to the Coastal Caucus meeting last week. We have the Long Island Sound Blue Plan, and working closely, actually the Maritime Aquarium in Norwalk is doing a lot of work in climate change as well. So there's a number of different things that are going on. There's not an answer on any of that stuff, but it's a number of and a set of different things that we all can do that help. And if you can't get solar at your house, I would suggest that people purchase 100% clean renewable energy as their electric provider. I have for about 15 years now. I pay a little bit more, and if you can afford it, it's good because at least you're buying clean energy that you're putting on the grid. But anyway, so there's a number of different things that we've done. Yes, and sir in the back.
We're going to hold our own against the change in the EPA laws affecting fresh water and so forth, and the cleanliness of the sound. That really worries me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're talking about the recent rollbacks that the Trump administration has proposed on clean water. Yeah, I would think Connecticut has higher standards than that. And I think our values for the residents that we represent tell us that clean water is an essential and that we want to make sure we maintain clean waterways. Representative Dathan had talked about the PFAS issue in our waterways, that because of firefighter spray foam and other chemicals. PFAS, if you're not familiar with that chemical, it's a pretty nasty chemical, but it's used quite a bit. So if you have a frying pan that's non-stick that has PFAS on it, if you have a pizza box and the pizza doesn't stick to your pizza box, that has PFAS on it. Sails for sailboats have PFAS on it. They're all over the place. Also, I've been doing chemical reform for years. We've had PVDEs that are flame retardants. Those are awful for our environment because we use way too much of it, and that's why firefighters are getting sick. So All these kinds of things we have to do on a state level and be ahead of the federal government because they're not doing enough and they're not doing it fast enough, or as much as they should be.
Roma?
Okay, thank you. I'm Roma Stiberly, and I'm president of a sustainability organization. And the excellent presentation we have just had on energy, but I'd like to add that the state has approved community solar. It just has started in eastern Connecticut, I believe. It has not come here yet, but this we should make a big push for because it is the cheapest way for us to get clean energy and reduce our energy bills. So it's community solar is the word at the moment. There's also a great possibility that the decommissioned power plant of Mount Ressa Island, which is 125 acres on the waterfront, could be turned partially into a solar array, which would give us energy security when we have storms, etc., and also a great chance to lower our bills and protect us when we have a situation like Sandy. So anyone who wants to work on this, please don't hesitate to see your elected officials or me, and we have a great future of meeting the state's plan for 100% renewables by 2040. So far, we've done nothing here in Fairfield County, so we have to really help the state get going.
That was the easiest question I've answered all night.
What organization is it specifically? You said you work.
NGO Sustainability. You can look it up on the internet.
Right. So let me start by saying thanks for your commitment to citizens of Norwalk and Connecticut. The three of you in the House, each of you having involvement in appropriations, I think that's important. The highlight starts with recent projected surpluses and assume that there's some projected deficits in the future. So as we think about things like this, and when we think about climate change, well, climate change on consumers may cost more money, such as solar panels or, fees for bottles and plastic bans and other things like that. How has the legislature positioned itself to think about something like cannabis from a revenue generation perspective, that if it does create more surpluses, then the state could have the ability to provide some tax credits and some other incentives that could help incentivize folks to participate in certain solar and other things that benefit the climate and result in cleaner environment, cleaner energy, and things like that.
Well, if I might, I think one of the issues with cannabis is that it's not exactly a stable revenue source because it does change depending on the product mix. So you'll have the
Ice and lemon.
yeah. She's been working on that all day. Well done. So I'm done for the night. When you have a product mix that other states are struggling with, what product mix in terms of edibles, smokers, all the different ways that you can present this stuff is going to be the best for your state's economy that's going to provide revenue. So I'm not sure that we've cracked that code yet. I think they're looking at somewhere. Their conservative estimates are about 41 million a year, but the more optimistic are closer to 60. But we just don't know. So you have to look at. You were talking about the cost of environmental initiatives that have they could have an adverse effect. But you also have to look at it the other way, where you've got transportation. With gridlock the way it is, we're pumping particulate matter into the air. We're basically making people sicker. We've had ozone alerts the last several years. The rates of asthma have gone up. Pulmonary issues have gone up. Those are costs also. So when you have a clean, efficient transportation system that reduces congestion on the roads and the pollution going into our our aquifers and the sound and everything else, it pays to be clean and green, maybe even as far as marijuana, you know, I was going to make a pun, but she beat me completely on that front. So I would say that it's like there, within the committee structure, there is a lot of analysis that happens, you know, relative to that issue, whether, you know, so our solar panels are good, are, you know, incentivizing hybrid vehicles, you know, good for our state, you know, it's, so it's, but I think that the general push is, you know, keep it cost efficient, but keep it energy efficient, and that they, you know, will all benefit from it.
I just want to add, what I'm concerned about with legalizing recreational marijuana is not just the social cost and what it costs, but looking at some of the other states. We have several years of data now that we can look at and say, you know, are these states making as much as they thought they were? You know, certainly in Massachusetts they aren't. And my concern is, do the social costs outweigh that? So I am studying this issue very closely because I do have a lot of concerns. I also feel that if you legalize it, you normalize it. And so that's, you know, is that the message we want to give our kids? So thank you for your question.
And I'll just mention that, just go back to the energy front on how you keep costs down. One of the things that we've done over the last so many years, not the legislature, but the executive branch, has done reverse auctions. So lots of times the energy that's being procured is coming in. It gets pushed down because of the way the bids come in. And they're basically coming in at the same price or a little bit cheaper now as some of the fossil fuels. So that's a good thing, and that's how we want to keep moving towards clean energy and that's renewable energy, because we can do it in a way, as long as the way the markets are, that we can keep that cost down. As far as legalizing goes, I've never advocated for legalizing for a revenue standpoint, because I don't think that's a good policy to do that. However, we need to create our own destiny here, because we're a small state. If we were a big state, it might be a little bit different. But because of the fact that people can literally drive to Massachusetts from here, they can go to Rhode Island because they may be next to legalize, or New York may be next to legalize. It almost reminds you of, you know, years ago when people would go to Vista on Sundays to get alcohol because all the liquor stores here were closed on Sundays. So you've got to do it in a way that makes sense, that creates a policy that is certain, that understands some of the issues, traditional issues that have been happening with marijuana, and that understands the implications of normalizing something like recreational marijuana too. So it's interesting, because you got a lot of times people say, well, just legalize it. And sometimes I think if you had an up or down vote just on that question, it would, almost like a voter referendum question, it would pass. But when you get down to the writing a policy on legalization of something that has not been legalized for decades, say, then it becomes much more complicated, because there's a number of other factors that come into play on that whole issue.
Yep. So, good evening, everybody. First, I definitely want to say thank you to you for your service to Norwalk. I've had the wonderful opportunity of meeting most of you, Senator Duff, Representative Perone, Representative Sims, Representative Dathan. I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, but I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to have some one-on-one conversation with you as well. I wanted to especially thank Senator Duff for visiting the school where I teach recently. The students are actually just finishing midterms, so they haven't written you their thank yous yet, but they are definitely appreciative, and it was a really wonderful experience. And it was nice because we got to tell them that we don't always agree on every issue, but I still appreciate all the work that you do. I know that you work hard and your heart is in it. I'm here with a group of families that live in Norwalk. And we're here because we have a concern. One of the pieces of legislation that is going to be brought forward is about the removal of the religious exemption to vaccination in the state of Connecticut. And I would just like to know why is that a priority in this state? And before you answer, I would just like to read an article quoting Governor Jody Rell. Actually, it was written in 2003. It wasn't quoting her, but it was quoting, it says, Connecticut's immunization rate rose from 88% in July of 1997 to 91% in February of 1998. No other state has an immunization rate greater than 89%, and Connecticut at 91% was above the nation, the CDC's required great for herd immunity. So why are we pushing that piece of legislation?
Thank you, and yes, I enjoyed seeing your kids and always talking to you on the train platform
And everywhere you go, like Visa, everywhere you want to be.
But that's okay, and you're right, we don't agree on every issue, and this is one of them. And I believe very strongly that we should remove non-medical exemptions in the state of Connecticut so that kids who are going to school are protected, they have their shots that they need, they're vaccinated, and that we continue to make Connecticut a healthy state. Hold on, let me just finish. So your quote is from 2003. So since then, we've had a lot of data, and as you know, there's been reports out from every school and every school district in the state of Connecticut. And what we're seeing is lots of places where the numbers are actually coming down, the vaccination rates.
Right.
And
So this is about the overall state. It's saying that we were at 91% as a state, and I think we're at 96 or 97% now. So 96%. 96%. So it stands to reason that if we're up as a state overall, then those pockets are also up. And I think that is actually statistical manipulation to focus on the pockets, because again, statistically, if the state overall is up from 91 to 96%, then those pockets, it stands to reason, are also up. Isn't that correct, sir?
yes, so I don't know I have to verify those numbers that you have right now because I don't have them off the top of my head. But you asked me the reason why this is a priority, and that's the reason why I believe that this is a priority.
Well, you have to, if you're telling me the reason why it's a priority, and I don't mean any disrespect, you have to have correct information to back that up.
Well,
That's
I'm
what
just saying to
doing.
you that is it 96, is it 97, is it 93? What I'm telling you, how I believe it to be, is that I know based on the stats that are out there, that the vaccination rates have dropped in various school districts and various schools around the state.
They never
Such
used
as
to
we have
report
two,
those.
we have two in Norwalk that are that way. And so, again, we have come as a legislature and said this is an issue we need to discuss.
I have one more point to make.
Okay.
There were 4,200 children on Long Island that took the religious exemption. 4,200 children were expelled from school because of that religious exemption. Not a single case of measles in those 4,200 children that had the religious exemption. Since the removal of the religious exemption in New York State, there have been outbreaks of chickenpox in New York schools where the religious exemption cannot be blamed because those children have been prohibited by law from attending public school. And there's also been whooping cough outbreaks where
I've not heard that. Okay.
I will send you the articles, actually not articles, I will send you the letters from the school districts where children have already been expelled, are not part of school, cannot be blamed, and outbreaks have occurred. I would implore you, I'm begging you, please, you came to my school, you saw how much I love my job, how much those kids love me and I love them, and I would have to sacrifice that, and so would so many other people, but people that can afford it. There are people who cannot afford to give up their jobs and have to make this decision. There are people who would, you were basically saying that if you have the money, you can direct the upbringing of your children. But if you are poor and you don't have the resources to move or homeschool your children, you are basically out of luck. So I want you to please
I'm not saying that at all.
reconsider
I'm saying that you should vaccinate your children because vaccinations are safe and
Get
healthy.
them vaccinated.
Can we prove that? Can we prove that though? Can we prove that they're safe and effective? This is a lot of,
Yeah.
We can spend a lot of time on
there's a
this.
ton of
Absolutely is the
research
place.
that actually is opposing your yeses.
My stepdaughter is permanently injured from vaccines, thank you very much. That's how safe and effective they are.
So I'm just
Permanently
I'm
injured.
giving you my opinion and where I
Ooh, so you
believe
do,
we're
you have
going to
nothing
go.
to say, give me a look.
In the legislature this year, so we'll see, and I'm sure there will be plenty of time for folks to come in with public comments and to help direct that conversation.
So what's your opinion?
I am pro-vaccination, and I am for removing the non-medical exemptions for vaccinations that are required under the state of Connecticut law for children to attend school.
Don?
Thank you. Yeah, this question is for Senator Duff, and it's about the proposed brand-new Norwalk High School, which, as I understand it, is meant to be a regional high school, and the goal is to achieve economic integration or desegregation. I want to ask you, why are you confident that the full legislature will vote to send approximately $160 million to Norwalk, given the overall size of the school construction budget for the coming year. So this would account for a disproportionate amount of that budget. And then can you explain the concept behind economic desegregation for a regional school? Have you spoken to people in the contiguous communities like Wilton, Weston, Westport, New Canaan, Darien? Are they on board with this? And would this involve those towns paying some portion of the operational costs?
Okay, so I'm so glad you asked that question, because no matter where I go in the city of Norwalk, people are so excited and so happy about a new Norwalk High School. This is really very exciting news. I'm glad that my colleagues stood with me on that day that we had the press conference to talk about the new Norwalk High School. And even I was on the Brian McMahon side a bunch of times, and people over there are saying, we're so glad that Norwalk's getting a new Norwalk High School. I mean, think about the fact that
Are we getting it? Because we don't have the money.
Excuse me, I let you ask your question, so let me answer the question, please. There was multiple questions.
Well, what you've been saying is how excited we all are.
No, I'm saying, I am responding, so please let me respond. Thank you.
Spinning.
So, we've had a number of people who are excited because not only does it bring a new school that is 48 years old, it will I believe, raise property values. It'll keep people in Norwalk. It'll give us a brand new modern school that we need. I'm an alumnus over there at Norwalk High School, and I'm in that school quite a bit now. And we need a new high school. No matter any little bit of money that you put into that school, it's like throwing good money after bad. So we talked about that and decided that a new school would probably be the best way to go.
Who decided?
Excuse me, I'm still answering your question.
You haven't answered any part of the question.
Thank you. So these conversations began back in May, and actually at the press conference I detailed every single meeting that we had on the new Norwalk High School and how we came to this point with the superintendent, with the mayor, with the Department of Administrative Services under the school construction, and decided that it would be in the state's best interest if we expanded the P-TECH program, which is really a great program that brings kids, not only helps them get an associate's degree within 4 to 6 years, but also brings them here to Norwalk Community College, gets them that degree for free, gets them mentorship and a partnership with IBM.
With all due respect, you're not answering the question. You're simply giving your pitch again from your press conference. I asked you, why are you confident that the legislature is going to fund this at the level that you claimed they were going to fund it, given that this takes up a disproportionate amount of that annual budget?
Thank you. So anyway, so people are very, very excited about this school, and we believe that it will continue to draw more excitement. And so what we have to do is ensure that there's a process that has to be in place. This is why the mayor and the superintendent were part of this process. That's why I spoke to them and brought them into the process as well, along with the state. So when we have this regional, I shouldn't even say regional, it's a cooperation with other school districts to expand the P-TECH program, which would be by about 100 students. That, I believe, will then bring us the 80% reimbursement from the state of Connecticut. So let me just say that a little bit clearer. So the extra 100 students that we're going to get from other school districts will then bring us the 80% reimbursement from the state of Connecticut. That will then allow us to build a new Norwalk High School. And those students will be coming from Bridgeport, Stanford, maybe some other communities in between, but the folks at NCC and on the P-TECH Advisory Council and the superintendent have been very clear that they wanted to make sure that we were first going to Bridgeport and Stanford to ask them to be part of this P-TECH program. One of the things that the state should not be doing is continuing to reinvent the wheel over and over and over and over again. We have one P-TECH school here in Norwalk. We don't need 3 P-TECH schools. But what we can do is we can bring other students from other school districts into Norwalk to have an expanded P-TECH program.
Norwalk High School is not on the priorities list today. Senator Duff, the school is not on the priorities list.
Okay, you've asked about 4 times.
But you haven't answered. You have yet to answer the question.
Yes,
Hi, my name is Francesca Feliciano. I am a graduate from Hofstra University. During the day, I work for a healthcare company as an administrative assistant, and I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I live in Norwalk. I am a member of the Cornerstone Community Methodist Church, and she came and visited us. Thank you. I am strongly opposed to the bill that you're looking to introduce that removes the religious exemption for children to participate in school. What I wanted to find out today was where Perone and Lucy, where you stand on this situation. I already know where you stand on the situation, but I want to know. I want to know, where you stand and why you believe that removing a fundamental civil right is going to. How is that going to protect us, our children, from these deadly diseases? I think there are, as a parent, we are charged with making sure that our children are safe, and we're allowed to parent as we see fit. There are a lot of vaccinations that use fetal cell DNA from aborted babies, and my religious belief is to not abort. So for me, I have an ethical dilemma with the reason for vaccination, along with a couple of other reasons. And so I don't think that any perceived health threat should be enough to take away our fundamental freedom and our right of a medical choice, a medical freedom. And so I just wanted to find out where you guys stand on the matter and why you feel that way. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for your question and your statement. I do struggle. Well, basically, I don't have a problem with vaccinations as a public health focus. I mean, we are trying to make sure that our general population is healthy and can maintain their right to happiness and a healthy life. Okay, so to just rule them all out as bad. I just can't go there. And I've mentioned to you guys. I mean, I've struggled with the issue of when you start to get close to the issue of coming between somebody's religious faith and whether they should be, whether they should not have that opportunity. It's like, are we, where are we relative to the basically challenging somebody's right to religion, and I don't think I've heard or read a framework that really looks at that, but it's the problem is basically this, that if we don't steward the needs of the greater population, we put a lot of people at risk. And I think that's the thing. Now, you're basically saying, the numbers being what they are, where's the need for doing this bill to remove this? That's the debate. That's what we're going to be talking about. I mean, tonight we can go back and forth with the research, and we'll be here till 2 in the morning. But I think that's where the debate's going to happen, and we'll go from there.
So do you oppose, or are you for or against it?
I don't even know what the bill says. We have. I mean, that is kind of a thing here, and that's. Look, I want to protect our. I'll say it again. I want to protect everybody in this room, our kids. I want to make sure that we don't put in policy that promotes the spread of disease unnecessarily. At the same time, at what point are you getting in between somebody's faith or not, and the basically interfering with their right to religious liberty? But I don't know that that's really the case. It may not be. So I know that's not a clear answer, but like I said, we don't have a bill yet. We're going to be talking about this thing. It may, I'll shut up now, but yeah, this is clearly a work in progress. Go ahead.
Me personally, I've been staunchly opposed to the religious exemption bill. I don't think the state, we should be in a place where we are pinning our residents in a position where we're saying is either you mandate a religious exemption bill, or your kids do not go to school. And I just don't see that is the necessary steps that we should be taking. I think that we should allow the religious folks and individuals and parents to speak on behalf of their own children and own beliefs. I certainly don't want to put myself in as God and vote for a bill that will take that exemption away. So again, you know, my colleagues and I will sit and continue to have conversations and deliberate over this issue. But I'm gonna just throw caution to my colleagues. You know, just be careful, because you know this is very treacherous water here. And I just don't like the irony behind it to say that we should be forcing folks to get this religious exemption bill or something dire is going to happen. I just don't believe in that policy.
I'm happy to answer this. It might be a longer answer than you'd like, and apologies. And you know, Representative Perone brings up a good point. We haven't seen the bill. We haven't seen the language. My concern last year in the last legislative session is I didn't feel like the process was going well. And I said to my leadership, I can't support this bill this session because I don't like the way the process is going. Saying that, as a parent of 3 kids, I have 2 situations where I have a friend who's blind because her parents decided not to vaccinate her. And her whole life, she's blind. She will never get her sight back because of a choice that her parents made. And that really sticks with me as an individual to see somebody that is scarred as a result of not getting what the medical community deems safe things for us to do. Secondly, my second story is I have a friend whose daughter had cancer, leukemia, and she was immune compromised, and this all happened during the course of her getting her vaccine. As a result, she was in this multi-year treatment program where she couldn't get her vaccines. And the only reason that this child could go to school was because 100% of her class was vaccinated. She wasn't, but everybody else in the class was. So this poor child was in the hospital for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. The only thing normal in her life was going to preschool and having her little book bag and seeing the teacher and being with other kids. And for me, that is something that's meaningful. And the only reason she was given that opportunity is because everybody else in the class was like that. So I do want to see that the process works. We have the public hearings, we get the bill, we see what the language is. But from what I'm talking, I was raised Catholic. You know, it comes out that, you know, we're anti-abortion in the Catholic faith, and I'll leave my personal sides where I stand on the abortion issue. But the Catholic Church, with this faith, does not say that you cannot have, that they're supporting the vaccine. So that's really what I have to say. And again, I really want to see the process, and I want to see the bill, and I want to see the language, because I think that in order for me to legislate properly and really understand, I need to really understand what the language is. So I can't make a decision, but I'm just giving you a little bit of background on where I stand.
Thank you, Lucy. I really appreciate that. May I also comment that there was, in 2011, a legislative court ruling where the federal government did state that vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. Exactly. And so while there are children who benefit from vaccines, I don't question that there are benefits. What I'm saying is that everybody should have a choice, and that it should be a choice. And I think that's just where I stand. Everybody should have a choice.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, thanks for coming. And I just want to say, first of all, as a high school senior, I'm so glad that you support vaccinations. I'm scared of going to school with children who don't have vaccinations. I'm just scared of diseases in general, so thank you for that. I just want to talk about gun violence. So I just wanted to ask if you were going to introduce like your stalker bill that you introduced in the last session, and if there were any other issues or like any other bills about gun violence in this session.
Well, with the short session, we, as Senator Duff mentioned, it's very short time frame. I've spoken to the Judicial Committee. I don't know if that is going to be a focus of this year, just for the avoidance of letting everybody know what the stalker bill is. Basically, in the state of Connecticut, there are 3 definitions of different levels of being a stalker, and probably the most minor one, but a lot of times you see these situations escalate. You are able to purchase a firearm even if you have a class 3 misdemeanor on this. I think we should close that loophole in our state because we do see violence escalation. I know, in my community and on the New Canaan side of my district, Jennifer Dulos was killed by her husband. We don't know exactly how it happened, but she had said that, she was stalked by him, and things escalate. So, and domestic violence is something that we need to be really on top of, address as a state, and we need to be on top of, I'm a strong supporter of making sure that we keep our communities safe, and, with all this sort of gun legislation that's coming up, I'm going to be looking at it all very carefully.
Just quickly, I just wanted to this young lady here. None of us are against the vaccination as it currently stands. However, for me personally, I just don't think that as a state we should be mandating folks to get vaccinated. I should think that's a choice for parents to make that decision on their own with regards to the religion. So that's my position. I'm not against the vaccinations, but I am against mandating that we force parents to have their kids vaccinated. Young lady, sorry.
Well, I think that just touching base on gun violence, there are, and Senator Duff is going to probably talk about this one too, but the ghost guns are, still an issue that where, basically what's that? No, but there's another initiative coming up. And really that it's still an Achilles heel in our efforts to track down gun violence. I mean, Connecticut has been a leader, obviously, for truly unfortunate and sad reasons. But we are committed to making sure that everybody is protected from gun violence. And
I'm just very proud of Connecticut, and thanks to young folks like you both, we now have some of the strictest gun laws in the entire country. And so therefore we are one of the safest states in the entire country. So I'm very, very happy about that. And the fact that the Sandy Hook bill was done in a bipartisan manner that covered a number of different pieces to school safety, mental health, and gun safety. We did a number of gun bills last year, and so what's going to happen this year, I'm unsure about that. We'll have to see, but I think a lot of the major pieces like ghost guns, and we did the, what was the one that we did? I forget. What we did the year before that even.
We did the safe storage.
The safe storage ones that we did. And even the year before that, we did the one that the guy had in Las Vegas. Did that one on a bipartisan basis. Yeah, the safe storage one of the safe storage ones. Bump stocks, thank you. The safe storage one was the one in houses was bipartisan, the one in cars, I'm not sure if that was, I don't remember if that was or not. But either way, we've done a lot of stuff in a bipartisan way, but we have led on the issue on a lot of those things. And again, thanks to young people all over the place who have been very vocal about this, who have come up to the Capitol to testify in the lobby on this, we've been able to make some big strides on it. So I think we have about 5 more minutes to go. For questions.
I'm Diana Waller, military veteran, business owner, mother. I have a question about committee makeup. My husband's African American, my daughter is biracial. There obviously are a bunch of bills coming up. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Public Health Committee has no members of color, either Latino or African American. So how is that going to be rectified? Because you can't make decisions for all of Connecticut regarding health if there's not a fair representation there.
So that's a fair point. don't know what the makeup is.
I do.
But, I mean, I know, I know you would do the research, so I think that it's just, but this is a representative democracy. You bringing your concerns to us, then we take these to the Capitol and say, look, you have to represent everybody, and this is how you do that. You tell us, we act.
Thank you.
Okay, try to do one more, John.
So mine's an overall question. I just want at the end, raise your hand if you understand what I'm saying, and you agree. So I understand what you're doing, and hats off, it's very difficult to what you do. But when you talk about insurance, there are 48 super dangerous hydrofluoric acid plants in the United States. They're owned by companies in Wilton, Stanford, and Greenwich. There's no insurance. Okay, so you talk about insurance, there's no insurance. You talk about the bottle bill, there's carcinogen that we need to address. You talk about clean water, there's 600 municipalities dumping their dredging material in the Long Island Sound. In Connecticut, they don't even do it in New York. So my question is, okay, so there's 7,000 bills coming, okay? There's 120 days or whatever. But if you look at the math, I mean, why are we working on net neutrality? Their lobby group is paying you guys to get it. But this is my question. If you look at the bills that you're working on, and you get down to the nitty-gritty about what the bills are and who's funding the bills, who's drafting the bills, why are the bills drafted by the unions who are supporting the DNC, who push the bills through, when in fact, if you look at the math, they're just paying you for your vote. I mean, I don't understand how, if 17 General Assembly members, okay, are working for the union the rest of the year, and then taking the bill, Mr. Duff has 1,000 bills. He didn't write 1,000 bills. That's impossible. They're 500 pages each, some of them. The fact is, if the General Assembly's not drafting the bill, and they're funding the campaigns of the people working on the bill,
What are you talking about?
what's going on?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 7,000 bills they're working on.
All right.
Thank you, John.
My question is, how can you allow the General Assembly members, I have my hand up, thank you, and I didn't interrupt you. How can the 7,000 bills, which a handful of people are working on, and then you go and pick a bill supported by a union that no one has any representation in, and then not take any advice from the GOP? I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's a very wild conspiracy that
Now
you
raise
just
your
laid out.
hand.
So I appreciate it.
That's a good answer. Raise your hand, ready? If you think, well then don't raise your hand, fine. If you can see the ethical problem with the unions drafting the thousands of bills coming.
They don't, so anyway.
That they do, okay?
What about the ones the
Okay,
NRA
what lobby
does?
group is paying you to work on net neutrality? Tell me the name. Yeah, right. All the communication companies that help control the internet pay the state of Connecticut
So
through the
can I
DNC.
just say one thing?
Anybody else have a question?
Yes, I have a question regarding
And you are.
transportation. Representative Perone and Sims, that you both are on the committee, that as we are speaking, and actually on Wednesday, there'll be a meeting from 1 to 3, the task force for paratransit. Now, you spoke about the fact that it's the emissions. Now, that's one thing that we are working on, but the problem in which we are having is the policy and the fact of each district has paratransit. And we have the issue in regards to that, so being the emission factor and the policy. So that is one thing. Where is your positioning, being on the committee, in regards to the fact of, you spoke about the emissions, but in regards of working with the DOT and allowing change to occur? Because apparently that seems to be the problem of what is being heard in the task force.
In all due respect, I'm just not quite clear what the issue is. Could you maybe amplify your answer?
Well, in the fact that there's paratransit there within the state, there's several companies, and the vehicles are diesel vehicles, and the issue of the factor that trying to get change in regards to the emissions.
So you're concerned that we take those out of service because because of the emissions that they produce?
Well, the fact is that it's hard. The problem is of the change of the policy. Being the policy and the fact that the companies and individual cannot make the changes themselves.
Yeah.
That they've got to go through directly the DOT. The DOT has to approve any and all changes that Norwalk Transit, Greater Bridgeport Transit, New Haven Transit.
Yes, and that's part of it. But there are hearings within the Appropriations Committee, where people that want to weigh in on paratransit on different factors, within transportation funding, can express their viewpoint to the committee and point out these issues. And so there is a public forum for that.
Well, yeah, I'm on the task force, but I'm just saying we're creating it to go to you. Okay, so now you're
right
on the transportation committee.
Mm-hmm.
So where is your position on wanting to see changes for better paratransit?
Our job is to make sure that what paratransit does is it's a vital piece of people's lives who truly depend on it and need it. So we answer to you. So when there are issues that you feel strongly about, our job, like I was saying earlier, is to make sure that we act on those issues. We're not going to stand in the way of something that we feel is actually going to be for the greater public good. So I mean, we're on your side. It's just without many specifics, it's hard to talk about specific things. But if say having vehicles that are more energy efficient and easier to access for folks that need them, I think these are things that we're going to talk about. But it's we can keep having this discussion, but there is a process in place to air these concerns.
Okay, everybody, it's about 5 after 8 or so. I'll take the question up there. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you again in the future. Have a great night.